Yo, what is going on, Guardians, and welcome back to another Destiny gameplay video. In this video in the background, you're going to be seeing gameplay from me on Xbox. I've been playing a lot more frequently over here, trying to get my, I played a lot in year one actually, but I took a lot of time off in the middle years, so I don't have a character at 400 yet, because I've been playing all the content on PS4. I still have work to do on the PS4 to get my characters where I want them to be, so I haven't been playing too much in the recent months, but lately been picking it up a little bit more, so that's what you're seeing in the background. And I want to talk about in this video the console wars, and all the better players, the sweaty players are over on Xbox, blah blah blah. I want to address that and give my perspective on it. Now, I'm not going to make the assumption that I know everything in the world, and I could be off on some of this stuff. So if you disagree, feel free to do so with evidence and respectfully, and we'll garner some good discussion in the comments section. But first, I'm going to give you guys just a frame of reference, sort of where I come from in terms of my kind of competitive shooter experience. So I've always been an Xbox guy, okay? Xbox, the original Xbox, I played the crap out of Halo, Combat Evolved, I played in local tournaments, I did all the LAN parties. That's really my roots when it comes to competitive shooting. So from there, I took the next logical step. I moved up to the Xbox 360, and there I no-lifed the crap out of competitive shooters. I mean, Halo 3, Halo Reach, Halo 4, many Call of Duty titles, Battlefield. I mean, I played all the main competitive shooters on 360, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. So that's really my frame of reference. That's where I come from. And then when I went to make the transition when Xbox One and PS4 came out, I was in a different stage in life. I had a ton of college debt. I was working at a church, not making a lot of money. I wanted to make a transition to an Xbox One, but I didn't have the money to do that. And so I actually made the transition to a PS4 because my two best friends that I played with regularly on 360, that my wife and I played with, we wanted to keep playing together. They made the transition to PS4, and they had their reasons for it. And what they ended up doing is, since I knew I worked at a church, didn't make a lot of money, they actually together pitched in and bought me and my wife a PS4. So I made the transition to a PS4, and my motivation for doing so had nothing to do with my player skill. It had nothing to do with that at all. I was actually going to make the transition to an Xbox One, not because of my skill or the skill of the community. I was going to make that transition because I'd been an Xbox guy for a long time. It just seemed like the logical thing to do. I figured it would just be a console that I would be familiar with from the get-go, as opposed to learning a new controller and a new interface on a PS4. So I made the transition to a PS4 mainly because that decision was made for me. It was social purposes, had nothing to do with player skill. So that's how my transition happened. But a lot of people actually made the transition from Xbox 360 to PS4 for different reasons. In fact, the PS4, when early reviews were coming out, most people were saying, you know what, the PS4 is a better performing console. It has better share and recording features and streaming features. So for gamers who want to show off their gameplay, it was actually the better choice at the time. People were saying this is probably the direction that you want to go. In fact, I still remember the video that Boogie2988 put out. He's a huge YouTuber, and he got his hands on both consoles early. He got to experience both of them, and he actually put out a video comparing them apples to apples. He said you can't go wrong with either one, but if I were to fall off the log, I'd actually fall off the log and say go with the PS4. And his explanation, he said, I still remember this to this day, several years ago, he says the PS4 was a console made by gamers for gamers. And so some of the early reviews of these consoles were actually leaning towards PS4. So a lot of people jumped ship from 360 and ended up transitioning to a PS4 for those reasons. Now, whatever your reasons were for deciding your console, I'm willing to bet that almost none of you made the transition because of player skill. It had nothing to do with player skill. It was either brand loyalty or it was console features that made you make your decision. But now that we're in Destiny and there are two consoles, I don't think that, I mean, there's no wrong console to play on at all. I prefer PS4 now just because this is where most of my friends are. It's a larger community over here. I'm more invested in this community, but a lot of people have their own reasons. But now that we're here in Destiny, I've heard several different arguments for why Xbox is sweatier, quote unquote, or more difficult than the PS4. And the two main reasons are this. The first one I hear is, well, Xbox has a history of having the competitive scene. Okay, so you're talking about a fraction of a percent of players who are involved in the competitive shooting scenes, you know, on console. Let me ask you this: how many times have you run into Nade Shot in the Crucible, or you know, 2 Ogre? How many times have you run into Optic or Phase? It doesn't happen. I mean, maybe once early in Destiny 1, but that community has no effect on Destiny right now. Like, none whatsoever. In fact, if you want to talk about the competitive scene, the competitive Destiny players, the ones that were on Xbox, actually transitioned. They switched. They're over on PS4 now. And they almost all of them main PS4 now, because this is where the competitive scene in Destiny is. So if you're running into competitive Destiny players, quote unquote competitive, who are competing in the tournaments and all that business, even God Squad and those guys, they transitioned. They're over here now. We're running into them over here. I've run into Gabe over here. I run into these guys from time to time. It's happened. So that community actually transitioned over to PS4. So that fraction of a percent of the community that's quote unquote competitive, that's not an effect at all on the current state of the game. It hasn't been for a long time. The other argument that I hear is the community size is smaller on Xbox, making it more difficult. Well, actually there's no data that supports the argument that the community size is a direct has a direct relationship to how difficult it is. In fact, the data kind of suggests the opposite. The numbers that I've seen have suggested that even though the community is smaller, the ratios are the same. So think of it this way: PS4, let's say, has 20 players. 4 of them are exceptionally good. 4 of them are pretty dang good. 4 of them are average to above average. 4 of them are a little bit below average, and 4 of them are just downright terrible. And then over on Xbox, you have 10 players. 2 of them are exceptionally good. 2 of them are pretty stinking good. 2 of them are average to above average, 2 of them are maybe a little below average, and 2 of them are just downright bad. So you kind of get what I'm saying here. The ratios, according to the numbers that I've seen, are the same. So the average KD across the board, roughly the same as it is on PS4, and the average, you know, Trials Elo is roughly the same as it is on PS4. The average combat rating is roughly the same as it is on PS4. So you see what I'm saying? The ratios are the same. It's not that the player community is a lot better. It may be smaller, but the skill gap is still the same. And in my time playing on Xbox, both in year 1 and lately, I mean, I don't really sense any difference whatsoever. I run into people in the Crucible regularly where I'm like, what the heck are they doing? And I run into players regularly in the Crucible and Xbox where I'm like, wow, they're really good. Same way that I do on PS4. It doesn't seem any different whatsoever. So anyways, that's my frame of reference. I think console wars are silly. I think that player skill is not a factor when it comes to deciding what console you're going to play on. So that's how I fall off the log. I don't think that any one console is more competitive than the other. It's just different. It's just a different community, same game. You know what I mean? Gamers are gamers no matter where they are. That's sort of where I fall. So hopefully my thoughts have been coherent for you, and feel free to give me some of your feedback, what you think, what your experience is, and please be sure to give sort of evidence too for the way that you think and why you think that is. So that certainly helps clarify arguments. So please keep it respectful, guys. Appreciate y'all, and I'll catch you in the Crucible.